Hello, welcome to today's HR Huddle. I'm Tamera Loerzel, and with me is my colleague Samantha Mansfield, and we are glad you are joining us live or listening to our recording. And we talk about everything talent, people-related considerations, and we kind of have a maybe interesting one that we see in coaching. And I'll set it up, and then Samantha can add to it, and we'll give you some strategies. And that's how to deal with guilt when it comes up. And one of the things that we notice in some of our coaching calls in our leadership programs, and sometimes, with leadership teams or partners or even managing partners, they are experiencing this sense of guilt or worry or concern stemming about somebody else or perceptions of themselves when they're taking time off or when they are, delegating, or things that we should be doing as professionals and as managers and as partners. And so we just thought we would delve into it and explore what we're seeing, like I said, and then some strategies perhaps that maybe HR professionals, talent leaders can tap into to help navigate past that into the root cause and some ways to, move through it to what, we should be doing, because it really is the right answer. It's the right thing to be doing, but it might not feel like it in the moment. So Sam, what would you add that you're seeing to set that up?
Well, why I think it's also an important topic is because when you have team members or especially leaders maybe that are feeling guilt, like you described, it oftentimes will hold them back. So it'll hold them back from maybe making progress that they could be making because they're spending too much time worrying. They're worrying about, well, how will this impact this person, or how will this impact this person? Or, I need to be covering for everybody else. So I want everybody else to be able to go take their Fridays off, or I want everybody else to be able to go get their vacation. And I'll just wait to see if there's any time left over from me. And we can't have our leaders getting burnt out, right? We need them refreshed and inspiring and able to lead. And we also want them leading by a good example. We need up and coming leaders to raise their hand and to be saying that they want to take those roles. And if they look at leaders and say, gosh, they don't get even the same benefits that I do, then it's going to make some people hesitate. And so we don't want to let that worry stop our leaders from really enjoying the work that they do and their personal life. And that's why I thought this would be a valuable topic of what to watch for, how to draw it out, and then let's set some mindset shifts because it's really not necessary.
Yeah, love that. I think as women, we can relate to the mom guilt. Mm-hmm. So like I should be at work and I should be paying attention to work, but then I'm worrying about kids, or I'm worrying about my family or my house and all those commitments that I have. And when I'm home, I'm worried about work. And I think I'm saying that because it's familiar for many people. Even if you're not a woman, you might have some of those feelings, or somebody that does, that might be close to you. But it really is about managing that inner dialogue and what it's saying to us. So I wanted to start there maybe and just to notice, like, what is our inner dialogue saying to us that is making us have those feelings of guilt? And then how can we set that aside and notice it to say, what are my commitments and what do I need to do about that? Because mostly that's what's derailing us. Mm-hmm. Is our inner dialogue. Sam's not telling me I need to be focused over here and not worried about my kids. When, my son calls 3 times in a row, she's not saying that to me. She's saying, go answer the phone call. And so it's mostly not external. Now, that said, that's one of the things that HR professionals and talent leaders could be watching for. Are we giving mixed messages? Mm-hmm. In that example, we say we're committed to family first, but then I roll my eyes or I make derogatory comments, if my son does call 3 times. But I could communicate, hey, I'm expecting a call. He's working on this. Or, my mom has an appointment with her oncologist today. He's going to call and I do need to pick it up and take it because they're very hard to get a hold of. Mm-hmm. I can communicate that so that we can have it. But we do need to watch and make sure we're not doing things externally to cause those feelings, but most of the time we're not. It's internal dialogue.
Right. And that's why one of the things that if you're the one or you encounter somebody that's having these feelings is let's verify.
Yeah.
Right. So some of the feelings we can have is, oh man, everybody else is also underwater. And yes, I have something going on, or maybe there's, something important that's coming up that I really want to be at, but I don't want to put that burden on anybody else. And so I just need to shoulder it. And that's where we can remind our colleagues we are a team. And there are times when we need to step in and help each other. And there's nothing wrong with saying, I need help. Like you just said, Tamara, the oncologist is calling. Okay, well, if I'm really listening to a team member and I hear oncologist, I know the interruption is not just with that one phone call. You're going through emotional weight as well. And man, how could I be there more for you? And we just have to recognize that not all of our team members are willing to do that ask, because again, they just feel that it's inappropriate, or they feel that that's putting a burden on somebody else. And it's just this feeling that I don't necessarily deserve that, or I'm the leader and I'm not supposed to have that ask. And so just reminding each other that we're here for each other and we all have these needs. And so reach out. Like if you're seeing that or you hear that, reach out at a different time, not in front of everybody, but reach out at a different time. How else do you maybe need some relief right now?
Yeah, I think that's smart. And it's hard to be vulnerable. I was just on a coaching call. We're completing our TLP here in a couple of weeks. And, one of the growth areas for this coachee was vulnerability. And it was just so brilliant. She was saying, I thought I had to have it all put together, and I have to do it myself, and I have to be the answer, and I am the leader, and I do want to progress to partner. And what she's discovered is by being vulnerable and sharing where she's at and collaborating and approaching it from a team perspective and communicating, others are able to do that. Yes. But then also she can accomplish more and not have it be all the pressure on her. And by the way, people are watching that and go, I don't want to be like that.
Exactly.
So, we need to, be careful about how we're portraying ourselves. So I think what you were just pointing to was, having some vulnerability and giving permission for that. We say it's one of our 23 leadership attributes is vulnerability. Even though you look it up in the dictionary and it says weakness, because it shows that humanity. And it shows that we need to approach it as a team and collaboration, and we all need help sometimes. Mm-hmm. And so how do we, facilitate that? I think another one that I'll jump into and you can add to, Samantha, is planning. Sometimes we don't delegate because I didn't plan well enough, or I'm guilty about going on vacation, which I'm doing in 2 weeks. I could resonate with this a little bit, given our volume of work that we're blessed with and clients and opportunities. And, just we're all doing different things, family commitments, trying to enjoy a little bit of this summer we have. And it requires planning and communication. Now, some of that is a skill set and a gift of ours. Some of it we can teach. And so, if I'm going to be delegating, we talk a lot about what is our timeline and how do we fit that in, and how do we set expectations about ownership, seeing it all the way through, which means you might have moved to the next audit, but we still need to have this complete, and you're responsible for doing that. Well, then who else do we need to communicate that to? The next partner, manager, team, or whatever. Or we have a vacation handoff document that we create, and we wrote a blog about it. So I'll have Brianna stick that in the tools, in the resources, but how to effectively hand off, your responsibilities and status, when we have, things like that we're going to be, moving on to, or before I go on vacation. And, usually we'll do it like a preliminary, like, here's the stuff. I sent out an email on Friday. Here's the stuff I need to know that you need from me, and here's what I can get done, and here's what's going to push. And there's some negotiation in that, right? And then here's my final status and who the contact is while I'm out.
Mhm.
And so I think that can relieve a lot of the guilt and know I did what I could, anticipating, planning, communicating to the client, doing an out of office, et cetera. By the way, I need to change my PS as I'm speaking about this, saying I'm going to be out, in 2 weeks. So helping people, think about and anticipate what they can do. And that relieves a lot of the guilt, maybe not all of it, but it will relieve a lot of it. And there's a lot of strategies inside of that. And we don't often connect them. So I think that's part of the reason I'm saying it. One of it's skill set. Second, we don't often connect that to this idea of, hey, I've done everything I can to empower my people and not just drop things on them or dump things on them. They know what's coming. They've agreed to it. We've negotiated. We can handle it.
Well, and in that same vein, that's where we have to be careful about overcommitting and how
Yes.
we can help each other as team members too, because especially if somebody isn't maybe as skilled in the planning, like you just mentioned, Tamara, or we know they have a propensity to want to say yes. They don't want to have to tell anybody no. And they have a vacation coming up, then we may need to help that team member and say, should you be saying yes to that? Or should we reset the expectation of when we can do that for the client? Or should that go to somebody else to start it or to complete it? Because you deserve to have that time off as well. And we know you want to make everybody happy, but you're saying too many yeses before you're going to be unavailable. And so then you're either going to be unavailable to your family while you're on that vacation because you're going to be logging in the mornings or evenings or something, trying to do the work.
Vicious circle, by the way.
Exactly. Or you're going to drop a bomb on somebody, and then there might be some legitimate guilt that somebody's like last minute taking this fire from you, saying, "Oh no, I wasn't planning on this either," and trying to get it done. So, help your colleagues if you see that you have somebody that does have that propensity to overcommit or want to say yeses. Check in with them as they're getting close to their vacation. And when I say close, I'm talking 2 weeks, 3
Right.
weeks, maybe a month out, depending on the type of work they do. Yep. The type of work they do, the types of projects they do, and help them manage that. Or, task somebody with, you're going to stay on Tamara and make sure she's not saying any more yeses for as soon as she comes back from vacation, because all the prep needs to happen before she goes on vacation. So, that's another thing. And then the other piece is reminding everyone that we have to reset expectations sometimes. We all have to.
Yes.
We can try to plan as well as we can, but there are unexpected things that pop up. And sometimes we have to reset an expectation of when I'm going to get back to a client or when I'm going to join or start that internal initiative. And we got to remind and empower our people that it is okay and it is expected. Now, if I'm always having to reset, okay, then that's where, are we setting the wrong commitments? Am I not planning? That's a different conversation. But there's no guilt in having to periodically reset expectations because it happens to all of us. And we just need to remind each other that that happens.
Yes. Smart. And I think checking in too. Samantha, you were saying that you were noticing that a lot of the people that feel guilty or F are feeling on Myers-Briggs.
Yeah.
So just the F is more sensitive, harmonious, people first. T is thinking, which is the opposite dichotomy, is more, this is what needs to get done, more logical, more the right answer. And so we can check in also. How does this fit? How does this work? Where are you at? So asking questions. I know we've talked several times on different HR huddles about huddling with our people. And the more I check in, the more I know where people are at, the less I have to worry about that. And the more transparent they're going to be with me. So if I can build that kind of rapport and two-way communication, I think that can make a huge difference as well.
Absolutely.
So I thought it was intriguing, Sam, that you raised feeling guilty about pricing.
Yes, I was going to mention that. Yeah. Well, because I think here's the other piece that I'm witnessing with that in coaching relationships is that especially when we know clients, or maybe we have that relationship, or it's maybe a nonprofit or whatever it might be. But there's this guilt of, am I being greedy? Because this is easy for me. But what we have to remember, and so maybe the mindset shift to coach each other on, because we talk about this as pricing self-esteem, right?
Yes.
Sometimes we drop that price because to me, this is not a hard thing. It's not going to take me a long time, but they're not paying for that 20 minutes that it's going to take for you to do that. They're paying for the 10 years of experience, or 20 or 30 or whatever that number is, right? Your client is relying on that expertise and that trustworthiness and that relationship they have with you. And it isn't diminished by because it's easy for you. And so that's where, again, there's not a point of feeling guilty because we have to raise our prices. The mindset shift on this is to think about, well, what if you have to tell a team member we can't do raises this year because our price isn't at the right point? Or what if we can't do that technology investment that really would allow us to serve clients better? Because again, we're not setting the price to where we can be getting better. And so try and think of the flip side of that coin instead of the one individual that you're thinking of in that moment where it feels like, oh, am I being greedy? Should I be doing this? They've been a client for so long, and we hear it all the time. We really do. And it's not something to second guess, but it's to know that you really are delivering value, and your team along with you deserve to charge a price that really recognizes that value that you provide.
And I think that's the mindset shift. And it's so ingrained in our profession that our value is tied to time.
Right.
And it really is going to get us in trouble
Yep.
as we invest in technologies, as we use AI for our, research and development, and we automate processes. By the way, first of all, we have to invest in all that stuff and but also it really is shifting from my value is my time, my hours, which I'm limited. So it should be economics, right? I have a limited quantity, price should go up, but we don't do that. And we constrain ourselves with it. And instead it should be based on value. The risk doesn't change, even though I'm using AI or automating things, the value doesn't change. And then the complexity. And so if we can start to move from that, it's better business practice, but it also can help with those feelings because we are in a relationship-based business.
Right.
Again, I think that's where we get stuck. And I think that's the thing to really look at, like these places of feeling guilt, what's really underneath that? There's something else underneath that. And I have, worry about my relationship with my clients, or I worry about the impact on my team, or I worry that I'm going to look bad, or I worry I'm going to be perceived as greedy. Like, what is underneath that? And then let's separate that out and talk about, strategies for doing so. And then we can overcome some of that guilt.
And I might be worried that I'm not as smart as they think I am. I've got that imposter syndrome that's just always heavy on me. And that's where we lean on somebody else. Again, That's where it feels vulnerable. But I get Convergence coaching. We price as a team because we go in and we get that second set of eyes for everybody to make sure, are you doing that? Are you having that moment? And making sure that we are setting the price at the right point. So what I also thought was valuable is, how do we recognize it in somebody? Right? Because what I've observed is that when I'm working with a leader that's having these feelings, they're trying to put the smile on. They're trying to say, everything's good, everything's good. But if you really listen or you watch, there are things that you'll notice. And one of the ones I was noticing is justification. So a justification for why they were saying, I really love that we do, 4 days in the summer and Fridays off. And then justifying why maybe leaders should also get the fifth day off. And it just caught me of why are you feeling like you have to explain why you would want that 3-day weekend in the summer as well, right? The other thing you can see is body language. Maybe eye contact, they lose the eye contact with you because they're feeling bad about it. They're feeling like somehow this is wrong for them to say, I want that 3-day weekend too. Or the a little slump in the shoulders. You really got to listen and watch. But then if you do, it's going to mean a lot to that person that you're paying that kind of attention and you ask about it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the key too, is ask and say, I'm wondering if you're feeling like you don't deserve that. I'm wondering if you're feeling guilty about that. And then get into a conversation about it.
Yeah, love that. And I think we had the premise when we started with this topic was that this might be something that we don't identify, to your point, and we don't discuss because it's a little touchy-feely, feeling guilty, and this is business, right? But it's legitimate, and it is part of what stops us. And so we just want to say, how do we understand and move past that so that we can go on vacation, price right, delegate, make decisions, communicate, get better at resetting expectations, get better at planning and timelining, because there are a whole bunch of strategies, and we just touched on a few to help overcome that and do the right thing and share it with your team. And your team will go, of course, this is what we should be doing. And so that's kind of the silly thing, right? So we'd love to hear if you have other strategies for this or other topics for the HR Huddle. We are always interested and intrigued. So please reach out to us. And thank you for joining in today. And we'll see you next time on the HR Huddle. Thank you so much.
Thank you.